In this video, I'm going to be showing you 3 ways that you can improve your kick and your bass's relationship within your mixes, your masters, and your productions. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I have a bonus tip for you. My name is Lennon, and I'm an electronic music producer that goes by the name Sirius. On this YouTube channel, I show you how you can improve your mixes, your masters, your productions, your songwriting, as well as providing music, business, tips, and tricks to help you navigate the complex industry that is the music industry. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss anything. I have a lot of really great videos planned for you guys, so be sure to comment and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter and join my Discord server. The link is in the description below. Let's dig into the content. So we're in FL Studio and I have a track pulled up that I'm working on. It's at 138 BPM and it's a 4 on the floor, kind of hard dance track. And recently in the project, I found that shortening my kick is much more effective than leaving the kick sample as it was. Now this is a kick sample from the Vengeance Essential Club Sounds kicks, which is one of my favorite sample packs. And as you'll see here in the metering, and you may hear if you have good headphones or speakers or even a sub that you may be able to use and even feel, you'll hear and see that the low end is so greatly improved when the kick is shortened. So let me play a quick example here of what I mean, and you'll be able to see the difference. So here's the kick without it being shortened. And as you can see here, the low end was very heavy. So let me replay that same point and shorten the kick. Now take a look at the low end of the kick, and you'll also hear a much bigger difference. You'll hear the kick punches through, you'll hear the bass is much more prominent, and it really kind of allows some breathing room in the low end. Now, could this be cleaned up a little bit more? Could the kick be thicker? Could the bass be a little bit heavier? Maybe. The track isn't completely finished, but you can definitely hear and see the difference in the low end when the track is playing versus when the track has the kind of trimmed up kick like it is here versus when the kick sample is not. And you can see there's a long tail here and gives it that extra low rumble, which isn't really necessary. So here I have another example of a different track that I'm working on that's at 105 BPM, and it's kind of a mid-tempo, groovy, funk track. And the main driver of this track is the kind of funky electric bass line. And I've done a couple different things to it to make the bass sit a little bit better with the kick. Now, I'm going to play a small example of the track so you can hear what I'm talking about. But in here, the kick has a bit of a lower frequency and is much thumpier, whereas the electric bass drives in the warmth department. So the bass sits around 200 to 250 is really kind of where that warmth sits, whereas the kick thump really kind of lives around the 60 to 80 hertz region. Let's take a listen. So as you'll hear, in this example, I have a lower kick that is really kind of driving the low end and punching through in the low end. And I also have the electric bass that is kind of the driver of the groove and funk of the track that kind of sits around the 200 to 300 hertz. Let me play the bass soloed and you can take a listen to that. So a lot of that warmth lives in the 150 to 300 range. So in the track, I could boost the bass around the 150 to 300 range because the kick doesn't really live there. The kick lives in the 60 to 100 hertz, which is not really interfering with the bass. Another thing that I have going on in this track is, which leads us to my next tip for you, is I have the bass subgroup ducking and being side chained for the lower frequencies. Now, why did I do just the lower frequencies and not just overall? So this technique will allow me to trigger the bass and the compression to duck only the lower frequencies up to about 150 hertz, versus if I were to sidechain the entire bass subgroup, then the entire volume of the whole bass subgroup will be reduced. So as you can hear, let me play this. I have a sub bass, I have an electric bass, I have a synth bass, and I have kind of a synth bass that's going on. And there's a lot going on, but I don't necessarily want the entire subgroup to be ducked in volume. I just want the lower region of the bass and the lower frequencies to not interfere with the kick, because there are parts where the bass does play at the same time of the kick. So this will help reduce the amount of lower frequencies that are interfering with the kick. So let's take a listen. So as you can see in the compressor here, you can see that every time the kick hits, the compressor is ducking these frequencies up to about 150 hertz, and it's ducking them by 8 decibels, roughly 6 to 8 decibels. And that really helps the kick kind of punch through and really cleans up the lower end of the mix. Now you can do this with any other instrument, so you could take a snare and sidechain that to some kind of other synth. You could take the bass and sidechain that to something else. It's totally up to you, and there's a lot of different creative freedom. I see a lot of productions use the technique of sidechaining a vocal to a synth. So if there's, like, say, for example, a pad that's going on and playing at the same time as the vocal, you could sidechain that so that when the vocals come in, the synth will reduce in volume. And you can do that only for specific regions as well. Like, so you don't have the whole synth reducing, you just have the part where the vocal kind of lives, which may be around 2 to 3K, 2 to 5K, whichever region you want to reduce. So this is a really unique technique in sidechaining. Now, another technique in sidechaining is you can use a plugin like Nicky Romero's Kickstart, which is one of my favorite sidechain plugins because it's so easy to do and it's so easy to use. You literally turn it on and you have all these different presets, and then you can adjust the mix knob. I use this for sidechaining all the time. This plugin is relatively inexpensive. I think you can get it for like $10 or $15 in the US. It's very cheap. Another tool would be LFO Tool from Exfo Records, the same company that makes Serum. And there's a whole bunch of other plugins that you can use this for, and there's a whole 1,000 techniques of sidechaining, but this one is one of the easiest and probably one of the most common. So I'm going to use this technique in showing you this example with the basses, and I'll go back and forth between using the multi-band compression, which is what I just showed you, versus this technique using the Kickstart plugin. So let's take another listen with the multi-band compressor, and you'll be able to hear that the synths do not duck in their entirety, just the low ends of the synths to let the kick punch through. Let's give that a listen. Okay, and now this is with the plugin Nicky Romero. Now you'll hear the synths volume drops significantly and the bass significantly across the entire board. And it won't just be those lower frequencies. Let's give it a listen. So as you could hear, the synths and the basses dropped significantly in volume, virtually reducing them to 0. And it made the kick really kind of the only thing coming through. Now, of course, I have all the other instruments muted, so you can really hear the effects here. But I think this technique specifically for this track just didn't work for me, and I preferred the multiband compressor to really allow the kick to punch through and give the synths on the higher frequencies that room and freedom to roam around. So let's talk about the final tip that I have for you guys, the bonus tip that I have for you guys, which is subtractive and additive equalization. Now, what is that? So basically, you're subtracting from one instrument and you're adding to another, and vice versa. Typically, that can be with a vocal and a synth. It can be with different versions of percussion instruments. It can be basses interacting with one another. Maybe you have two mid basses and you want kind of the fundamental frequency of one bass, and then you want the kind of harmonic frequencies in one, so you would subtract or add to the fundamental, and you would subtract from the fundamental in the other one. So in this example, I have the kick and the bass. Now, this is the same song that you've heard for the last couple examples, but I have the kick and the basses. Now, this is the bass bus here with this EQ, and then I have the kick here with this. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of EQ with the kick. I took out some of the punchiness, and then I added some of the higher airy frequencies. And this one, I just have this low cut for automation purposes. I'm automating it using it as a high pass frequency. So let's give this a listen quick, and we can kind of see what's going on with the kick frequencies and the basses. So the kick frequency, as you can see, was kind of living in the 60 hertz to 80 hertz region. So what we can do is we can take this and we can bump that up and give that a little bit more life and kind of give it more punch and bringing it through. And then in the bass, we would come over here and we would reduce those frequencies by roughly the same amount. So you can see here we bumped roughly 1 to 2 dB at 61 hertz. So we would come over here at about 61 hertz and we could reduce that about the same. And see here, I also reduced the kick frequency at 1531 by about 1 or 2 dB. So we could take this up to about 1500 as well, and then bring that up to give some room. So we're kind of keeping things neutral and we're allowing other things to kind of breathe through. Now, another thing I like to do is typically with the lower frequencies and EDM kicks, since they're already really, really heavy on the low end, I don't typically boost them. So what I would do is I would find one that's got more punch. So So you can see here around the 100 to 200 hertz, there's got some of that chesty pump to it. So what I would do here is I would like the kick to come through a little bit more. So I'm going to take this and boost it around 170, and I'm going to take this in the bass bus, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to go to about 170 and reduce that by about the same amount, because that's going to give the kick more breathing room, and it's going to pull some of those frequencies out of the basses so that the kick has a little bit more room to breathe. And also, I don't have any sidechain compression on this example, so you can really kind of hear the differences. Let's hear what that did. That was on, and this is off. It kind of helps the kick pull through a little bit, and the bass is kind of tame back just a little bit as well. So that's another technique that I use that's pretty common in this world. Now this track is a little bit unique because I'm using some sidechain compression in the overall mix here on the bass buses. I just turned it off for this example so you could hear it a little bit better. But this is a really, really important technique, and I think it can be really common and really helpful in cleaning up your mixes. Thanks for sticking around. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Friendly reminder, like, comment, and subscribe if you're new here, and let me know what you would like to see on the channel. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and join my Discord community. That's the best place to reach me, and join an amazing community of other industry professionals like producers, songwriters, hip-hoppers, rappers, you name it. We have an amazing community there as well. So thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.